Squats. One of the #1 exercises that people get wrong that will create a long-lasting damage. First thing is we want to make sure your feet are in the proper position. They're going to be slightly wider than hip width apart, so not too wide and not too narrow. If your toes naturally want to turn out, that means that your bone structure is just slightly turned out at the hip joint, which means your knees are going to want to slightly go out. That's okay. Wherever your knees are going, your toes need to point that direction as well. So it might not be perfectly parallel. The next thing is keeping the weight in your heels as you bend and as you straighten. Just like a house needs foundation in order to be strong and stand up tall, your joints also need foundation. So whenever you're bending, whatever is touching the ground or is pressing the movement, that's going to be where your foundation starts. So for squats, it's going to be the heels. So when you bend down, you want to make sure that your weight stays in your heels, not in your toes, okay? Now, with that, a lot of people will push their booties back in order to bend your knees. We don't want to do that either because that's going to create low back problem. So the goal is to keep the upper body lifted at all times. Sit down like you're going to sit in a chair, pressing through your heels to stand all the way up. Be careful not to arch the lower back. We want to try to keep that lower back nice and long, pressing through the heels to stand and to squat down. Keep the belly button pulled in and the chest forward as you bend down and as you straighten. You might not be able to go that low because it does take flexibility and strength in order to keep the chest and the upper body lifted as you sit down. So I would recommend using a chair behind you, sit in the chair and stand up until you feel ready. Now if your plan says a pulse squat, it's going to be important to know if you are doing a certain number of reps or a timed exercise. If your plan says a number of reps, this is how the exercise is going to look. You're going to squat down, come up halfway, back down, and stand all the way up. So full out, it looks like this. Down, up, and all the way to standing. Now, if your plan just has a time in the rep section, that means you're pulsing the entirety of that time. So it would be pulse, 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 pulse. Keeping the weight in your heels, chest is lifted, and belly button's pulled in.